John. Oh, God, that's so funny. You know I'm not ticklish. John, July is here, and it's time for fireworks.
Okay.
Continental soccer tournaments and the summer games.
Oh, man.
I don't know. No. Feels like maybe that wasn't a specific national anthem, but Knockaround has the sunglasses you need to make the most of it. They've been making high-quality shades that don't break the bank since 2005. Mm-hmm. They've actually been our personal go-tos for years.
Years and years and years. And you know what, Dave? Mm-hmm. With over 25 different frame styles, there's something for the whole family, including tons of kids' pairs.
Yeah.
Right? So whether you're looking to rock some red, white, and blues for the Independence Day, or cheer on the Stars and Stripes on the pitch track, court, pool, whatever.
Nice.
Yeah. Are there any other ones?
Give me a second.
Bocce ball court?
There we go.
Knockaround has you covered.
All their lenses have UV 400 protection, and with polarized adult pairs starting at $28, you can get a few pairs to leave in your car, toss in your beach bag, or just chunk at your neighbor's yards.
Or just chuck in other people's cars.
That's true. Yeah.
Windows are down.
They're
so cheap and affordable. Dave, let me tell you something. Let me make you a promise here. Okay?
Whoa,
let's say it's the 90th minute, right? The U.S. team, about to upset Argentina. All right?
Yes.
You'll probably see me wearing my red, white, and blue, my brand new red, white, and blue knockarounds. And I don't care if I'm in the house and it's raining outside. I'm not taking those things off.
You know what? You've gone rogue, John. That's just what I respect about you. You throw convention out the window. Or in this case, you may throw some shades into a window. That's a callback,
there we
John.
go.
Same here, okay? I probably won't take mine off all summer. Dadville fans, don't squint. Don't squint. You know what you're saying. Through the summer's festivities, check out knockaround.com and use code DADVILLE15 for 15% off your order.
That's DADVILLE15 for 15% off your order at knockaround.com.
Dadville. Yeah. Hi, I'm Dave Barnes.
And I'm John McLaughlin.
And welcome to Dadville.
Dadville is a podcast where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of awesome dadding.
It's funny thoughts and deep talks.
So please, enjoy your time here in Dadville and enjoy this episode with
David Nasser. That's hysterical. Do you mind if I talk to people for a second? It's important to John and I that the supplements we take are of the highest quality. And that's why for many years, how many, John? Don't talk.
Countless.
We've been both drinking AG1. Unlike many supplement brands, AG1 is constantly searching for how to do things better.
Okay, that's mine. Actually, both of these are mine.
Oh,
okay.
Well, no. Okay, go ahead.
At 52 iterations, Dave, of their formula and counting, so they could be at 53 by now, their team is always trying to find better ways to source, test, and aim to find the best quality ingredients available.
Quality for AG1 isn't just a buzzword.
It's not just a buzzword.
No. It's not lit. It's just AG1, guys. It's a commitment backed by expert-led scientific research, high-quality ingredients, industry-leading manufacturing, and rigorous testing. People are sweating when they figure out what's going on. At each step of the process, AG1 goes above and beyond industry standards.
Now, we know that we can trust what's in every single scoop of AG1 because AG1's team relies on expert-led scientific research, sourcing ingredients for potency and purity.
Two things they said about me in college. Right. Taking care of our health shouldn't be complicated. And AG1 implies this by replacing multiple health supplements like multivitamins, digestive aids, immune support, and more in just one simple scoop.
AG1's ingredients are heavily researched for efficacy and quality. Two things they didn't say about you in high school. And I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for enzymes. Yeah. It might have enzymes by now because they're working hard at
researching. Okay. And why do they do it, John? For gut support.
For gut support.
And I've been telling you so many years. I try to support your gut by saying you look great.
Thank you.
The six-pack is killing. We've partnered with AG1 for so long because they make such a high-quality product that we genuinely look forward to drinking every day.
Single day. That's
still my part.
Just every day.
Yeah.
So If you want to replace your multivitamin and more, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs to places you'll go. 5 or 4 different places and then go one place twice. With your first subscription at drinkag1.com/Dadville.
That's drinkag1.com/Dadville. Get your drink on. And listen, everybody, you're listening to this episode and you're thinking, Dadville, why did it take so long to get this man back? Because he got on. David Nasser, who is with us again today. One of our few repeat guests so far. I mean, David, you're in some weird.
I feel honored. Come on.
Don't do that.
No. Honors on this side. And I mean, if we've said this before with some other things, every now and then we'll say, if you haven't done X, you need to stop this episode and go do that thing.
Yeah.
I have never meant it more than now. Like, if you have not heard David Nasser's first episode, you got to stop, go back and listen to that, and then make a small donation to Dadville Podcast.
Come on.
.org. And then come back and listen to this.
And come back,
That was a year. That was about a year ago, almost
about a year ago.
To this week. That we were together.
Yeah.
And since then, I have tried to play tennis with you, Sir John.
Look, don't
You tried.
Don't give
I
up.
tried.
I know.
I just wanted to give you the ego boost. Do you know how good you would feel? Like Davis Cup, America versus Iran. 6-0, 6-0. It would make you feel so good about yourself.
So much would be on the line, more than just a regular match.
It would feel like the Rocky movies.
Exactly.
That's true.
So David, I'm gonna read this once again, your brag sheet, which we did last time, but just to catch people back up. And again, like John said, it's true. So basically, what happened? I'm gonna say this. What happened last time? And you warned us, David. You shot called this. You absolutely warned us. You knew exactly what was going to happen. We had David on. And as we were talking and interviewing you, we started to ask about the backstory, and you literally basically said, look, if we do this, I'm just warning you, this will take the entire podcast. And we were like, no, we're good. We're good interviewers.
The professionals here.
We can navigate with great acumen, precision.
We'll give a tight 5 to 6 minutes on your backstory.
And then we looked up like an hour, maybe plus later, and you were like, and that's what leads me to my 20s. And we were like, well, we have not listened to wisdom that you have offered. And so, of course, we had to get you back. But again, as John said, I can't tell you enough. If you guys didn't hear that episode, it's like a movie. It's amazing. So we're glad to have you back. So now we're going to sort of pick up with this. But let me sort of go back with the brag sheet here. Iranian born. Is it? I never want to say this wrong. Is it? How do you say?
I say Iran, but then people say Iran. It's great. Both are good.
Okay. But how would you say Iranian?
I say Iranian.
Iranian. Thank you. Okay. Iranian
David and
born
I
Muslim.
say Iranian, but Dave, how did you say it? You said it the wrong way, but what was it again?
I did.
Sorry about that, David.
The spirit is convicting me. I don't need you to, too. Iranian-born Muslim who converted to Christianity after escaping from Iran, which is, again, we talk about that so much. Traveled for over 30 years as a speaker for conferences, crusades, and festivals all over the world. And I need to make sure people understand that's not what happened next. Like, you didn't escape, and then you traveled the world, never finding purchase.
To a conference.
Just,
lanyard on immediately.
And then that was it. You just you hit the circuit.
I escaped Iran as a 9-year-old boy and just wandered around the world.
Hit the speaking circuit.
But they didn't
even invite me.
All the
just
time
show up.
Speaking. Guys, I have a thought. Who's this 11-year-old kid? I want to tell you guys. Okay, so authored 5 books. As senior VP and campus pastor of the world's largest collegiate ministry, which included, among other responsibilities, the largest weekly gathering of young adults in the world and the largest weekly collegiate Bible study in the world at Liberty, which I got to be a part of, which was truly, I know I said this on the first podcast, but I've never seen hospitality done better than that, and how well David and his staff cared for me, and everybody that I know that did that would agree with me and has. It was incredible, and I think that's such a gift to yours. 3 Dove Awards for executive producing and co-writing. TED Talk entitled Immigrants, We Get the Job Done. 3 years moved to Nashville to be the president of 4 Others, a nonprofit organization that serves vulnerable and at-risk children, which was founded by Chris Tomlin. Recently left that job to focus on teaching, writing, consulting, and doing his second episode of Dadville.
Yes.
Which we are excited. He has finally concluded the 2-part series. And so something that's fun that we talked about, we were texting with you earlier, David, about kind of, there's just so many things you could talk about. And you made this great point that, we've since moved to the speed round. And listen, we're all over the place. We're Dadville, we're quick, we're mobile, we're always shifting, we're always moving. But lately we've been doing the speed round. But with your first episode, we didn't kind of conclude with the question we were asking for years on this podcast.
The reoccurring question.
The reoccurring question, which was like, what do you want to be said at your funeral? And you made this great point in the text as we were texting this morning, which is a year ago, almost exactly. You were in South Africa for your daughter Grace's wedding. And you said the morning of the wedding, I took a leather journal and wrote a note to Grace and Ben, the son-in-law. And then you said we then passed the journal around that day to guests and had them write sort of note of admonishment and advice, any sketches they had, which I thought was interesting. And then in the note from Jen and I, we gave them the 5 things we hope not only to be said at our funerals about our marriage, but also about theirs as well. And so it kind of is this nice dovetail joint having you back on is like what, we didn't get to ask that question, but you have these great points that you sent us. And I was like, it just feels like that's what we should talk about with you today is these kind of 5 things you would want said at your funeral or again, advice, admonishment you would give to others. And so are you okay if we sort of do this?
Yeah. Let me just circle back and say, I think that's such a pointed, telling MRI of a question. I'm a big fan of the podcast. I listen to it all the time. And I get excited when you come around that question to people and you ask them. I'm always shocked that people haven't thought more about it. They stumble into the answer and go, oh, that's a good question. I haven't thought about this. But the truth of the matter is the people in the first 2 rows are going to say very different things than the people in the 8th and 9th row at your memorial, right? Like the people in the first 2 rows are the people who know you. Yeah. They are, the ones in the back row are more about your virtues and your accomplishments. The one in the front are really the stories of life.
So I would think about my funeral. When I think about the 1,000th row, who are those people?
The 1,000th row would be,
or even outside in the grandstands.
Those guys are just there early for Sunday service.
Right.
Okay, yeah. Because Bridgestone, I'm imagining, will be pretty full. And so I'm trying to think of
the 1,000th row would be like the guy coming in with a hockey outfit going, we came to a hockey game. Why are they doing
why is everyone so sad? And who is that guy?
Exactly.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Arthur Brooks says it's the resume of virtues versus the eulogy. And so who are the people who actually know you in the front row? And when you guys ask that question, it's really about the first 2 rows, like the people that did life with you, not from a distance. They're really not going to talk about, hey, John was just in LA and sold out a show, or Dave wrote a hit for, this country music star. Your kids are going to go, the things that really mattered to me was my dad was there for me when I was a freshman in college and dealing with depression. He just showed up in my dorm. He drove through the night. I woke up in the morning and he was there. They're going to remember things that really matter, that really hold serve. As a matter of fact, this idea that you guys have about this question is so powerful because I went to an Alabama game. I'm an Alabama fan. And I went to an Alabama game a couple of years ago with my wife.
I mean, so many Iranians are just packed in those stands.
Alabama.
It's what a subculture there.
Alabama. Anyway, so so I went to this Alabama game, and at halftime, guys, they brought in a golf cart. They brought out this gentleman at halftime, elderly gentleman, like probably in his 80s, and they put on the jumbotron. The guy that was announcing, and he said, hey, we've been doing a search for Alabama's biggest fan. We've been hunting high and low everywhere for Alabama's biggest fan, and we feel like we found him. And so they put the camera in front of 80,000 people at halftime on this elderly gentleman, precious man. He's sitting in a golf cart. And they put it on him, and they go, we have a video to show you about this man's life. They say his name. And then for 2 minutes, they run like this 2-minute video, which is them visiting this man's house, right? And his living room is astroturfed. His fireplace mantle is like a worship mantle to the University of Alabama. And his family is talking about him and how he does not miss a game. He goes to every away game, every home game, every this. His daughter says, my middle name is, named after one of the coaches. My sister's middle name is named after another one of the coaches, and this. And then they got done with the video and they said, and this is Alabama's greatest fan. And I thought, wow, like to be at the end of your life and that the greatest accomplishment that people know about you is that you never missed a game, And I'm a fan. I'm not against college football. I'm just like, wow, Alabama makes a good team, but he makes a horrible God. Like, I want more. Yeah. I want to be known for more than the things I did or the places I want more. And so I love that question that you guys ask. Like, what do you really want said at your funeral? And who does it really glorify? The answers to that question hopefully point to something or someone bigger than you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, I just absolutely love that question that you guys asked.
Yeah. Yeah. So walk us through these, because when you sent them, I was like, you sort of stuck the landing on these. So, because there's 5 of them.
Yeah.
And so would you kind of walk us through those? Because I know you sent them to your daughter and her son-in-law. Like,
yeah, so like you said, man, like we were in Cape Town, South Africa, a year ago this week. Wow. And we were sitting there, and I got a journal. A friend of mine gave me this idea, so it wasn't my idea. But he said, hey, the day of the wedding, especially since it was a destination wedding, right? It was a small wedding, about 80 people there. He said, hey, it's a bunch of couples, married couples that are going to be there. He said, these are the cousins and the uncles and the best friends and all these people. He said, only the married people get to be a part of this one journal. He said, take a journal, write a note with some advice to your daughter and future son-in-law, and then without telling Grace and Ben, my daughter and her, soon-to-be husband, pass it around to other couples and have them all just take a page and write a note. And at the end of the night, hand it to them. And when they go on their honeymoon, they'll have like 90 pages of wisdom and prayer and admonishment from the very people that, you allow into your life at this wedding. And so I sat there a year ago this week, and I opened up that little journal, and since I was paying for everything, I got to go first. You know what I'm saying? So as the father of the bride, I just started penning this stuff, and I'd never really put it on paper. But it came down to 5 admonishments, 5 encouragements, 5 things that I would want said about me. And I kind of wanted to telecast it and say, hey, Ben, like when you marry a Nasser, these things matter to us. So when you marry a Nasser, just know that she's chosen you because she sees you wanting these same 5 things. And so I hope that we're passing the baton and that you're going to carry these same 5 things. Now, they're not the preeminent thing. The one thing that matters most is that, you love the Lord and you love people. Like, but I'm presuming you're already saved, So like this is like once you got the main thing figured out, what are they, And really the first one, and I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on this as well, because you guys are dads. By the way, like, have you put a lot of thought into the wedding day of you walking your daughters down the aisle?
It's funny. Like whenever I think about it, my daughters are 11 and almost 9. It's like this thing that's too overwhelming, and it like short circuits my brain a little bit.
Wow, yeah.
I become overwhelmed by sort of it's not like I see it as a big scary thing, necessarily, but there's so much unknown at this point.
Yeah.
And it can be anything from like, oh, I hope the person they marry is awesome.
Right.
They probably will be, but what if they're not? Yeah. And like all the way to like, I hope they find someone. What if they don't find someone? There's just, it's so much unknown that I think it short circuits my brain.
Yeah. What about you, Dave?
She's not going to get married. She'll be a nun. And so we've thought about what we're going to say when we drop her off at the convent, and just kind of like, what day. Music to listen to.
That's a big day.
I'm with John. I just feel like my brain's too
far out.
Like,
it's Man, I got to tell you, like when my son Rudy got married, I wasn't that emotional. I was emotional, but when Grace was getting married that day, I was a wreck, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was a wreck.
Do you remember how you felt about it when Grace was like 10, 11, like elementary school age, like where Dave and I are?
Yeah, John, like right now when you both just said it's so far away that we have so many unanswered questions. Like, what will it be after college, before college? Will it be, hopefully it's a godly man. Hopefully, like they don't need to be married to be complete. It's not like a presumption that they're going to have to be married. Like their completeness will be in Christ, not having, Jesus was single, all these things. When Grace was 9 and 10, I remember I kept thinking there would be an incident or something, like she was 3 years old one time when a goose hissed at her. And she spat on the goose. She went, I spit on you. And I was like, in my mind, I remember thinking, whoever she marries has to understand, this girl ain't afraid. She just spat on the goose. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or we would go eat and she would do something super kind or whatever. And I'd be like, oh, I hope she passes that. I hope her husband sees in her what I just saw in her, or no, like there are these little things, but you don't know who the person's going to be, if it's going to be. It's far away, but you start collecting these things. And I think God's massaging your heart and preparing your heart, and everything. So that morning I'm sitting there and I'm just kind of writing these things down. And the first one was just simply like, man, give generously. And what I mean by that is, I pray that at your funeral, I pray that the essence of your marriage, I pray that what you're accused of, Ben and Grace Smythe, I'm about to give her up. She's about to die to her last name, get a new last name. And so passing the baton, I pray that you're accused of over-tipping. I pray that the rumor about you is do not tell them out loud that you like something in their house, because they will flat deliver it to your house. Like, do not, like if you ask him for 5 minutes, they're going to give you 30.
Yeah.
That if anything, the reputation about you is that you tend to be vulnerable to be taken advantage of because you were that generous. That you were, your generosity reflected the gospel and that it was just ridiculous.
I always forget you're still ticklish. John, break out the Butcher Box.
Okay.
It's summer and I'm ready to BBQ, baby.
Butcher Box on the barbecue cannot be beat.
It can't. Right.
With Butcher Box, Dave, let me inform you of this. I can easily find high-quality meat and seafood that I can trust.
Ooh.
100% grass-fed beef. Only grass in those mouths. Free-range organic chicken. Those organic chickens are just free. Pork that is raised crate-free and wild-caught seafood.
Yep.
All humanely raised with no antibiotics or added hormones.
Oh, yes, John. Like the easy barbecue pork skewer recipe from the Butcher Box website.
That's right.
Butcher Box pork chops, dry rub, and Primal Kitchen barbecue sauce.
And my favorite thing about Butcher Box is that it is the ultimate convenience. It's delivered not to your corner.
No.
I would gladly walk down there and get it. They deliver it right to your doorstep.
John, let me tell you what they don't do. They don't drive into Davidson County and just throw it out of the window.
No.
And then you have to go find it.
They could. I would gladly go find it.
You would do that. I would do that.
I would do it too. But they always ship it right to your doorstep, always with free shipping, and it's curated to my customized box plan. And you know what?
What?
It's just great to know that I'm always prepared with meat in my freezer.
And that's not a euphemism. I couldn't agree more, John. With Butcher Box, I take fewer trips to the grocery store, and I get curated tips and recipes based on my box. Plus, Butcher Box gives me peace of mind with high-quality meat and seafood that I can trust, John.
And just to continue, Dave, great recipes and a variety of high-quality cuts at an amazing value, plus exclusive member deals, recipe inspirations, guides, tips, hacks. Now, Dave, it's time to tell them about our special deal.
All right, guys, sign up for Butcher Box today by going to butcherbox.com/Dadville and use code Dadville at checkout and enjoy your choice of bone-in chicken thighs, top sirloins, or salmon. Yes. And some people read that salmon, but it's not.
However you read it, it's going to be good.
In every box for an entire year, plus get $20 off.
Again, that's butcherbox.com/Dadville and use the code Dadville.
And that,
Dave,
what?
Sorry. Were you going to say something?
No, you go.
I just have something that I'm really passionate about, but you go first.
No. Mine was just a story about Bugs Bunny and baseball. You go.
Okay. Listen, you're supposed to go first, so this is awkward.
Well, you wanted to go first, so I was going to let you. But listen, let me say this first. John.
Yeah.
You're still John, right? Methodical coffee is the greatest coffee I've ever tasted.
Okay, so I was going to say the exact same thing.
I had to get that off my chest. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And Methodical has so much to choose from.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell them about it?
Well, I'm so excited. I'm actually kind of hopped up on it right now.
Go ahead.
Methodical Coffee has craft coffee and tea for people of all kinds.
I didn't know if you were going to include that, and I'm passionate about that.
I've memorized this, and I want to get through it. Roasted, blended, brewed, served, and perfected by verified coffee and tea aficionados like my buddy Johnny John McLaughlin.
That's right. That's right. Methodical has resolved the headache of having too little or too much. I don't know which one's worse.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Too much coffee from your traditional time-based coffee subscription. With Methodical, you can subscribe by usage.
Receive a free smart scale that tracks your coffee consumption and triggers your next order right at the perfect time, so you always have just the right amount of coffee on hand, worry-free.
Best part is, you can receive 20% off your first bag and 10% off all subsequent bags. That means all the bags that come after that. Yeah. With no code needed when you try the free Smart Scale.
John, we also have our very own Dadville blend.
That's right.
It's the fuel that gets me going every morning, filled with hints of chocolate, graham, and brown sugar.
Now, Dave, Methodical is on a mission to connect people to the beauty of life through coffee experiences for people like you.
Me?
Yeah, and me. Oh. And you, listener. Methodical's been roasting and hosting since 2015.
The classic roast and host. On their site, you'll also find brew guides that'll teach you how to turn your coffee brewing chore into a beloved ritual. Receive 20% off your first bag and 10% off all subsequent bags. No code needed.
I already said that, but craft a cup you'll love with Methodical coffee. Go do it.
You know, it's funny you say that. I love y'all's house in 30A, dude.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that too. It's
anyway. No, keep going. Sorry,
It's easier now more than ever to transfer ownership of property.
It is, or just share. Yeah. To have it shared. Sure. No, that's beautiful. I think I've never thought about the accusation of those things, and I think that, and it's tricky. I wonder how you feel about this, Dave. Like when you think about benevolence in your kids, like it can sort of rub a little bit against that. Like, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing, because you don't want. Like, I never want my kids to be, I don't know, where I'm like, all right, time for me to tip, kids. Gather around.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes, well said, John. Yeah, that it ever feels like it's performative. But, there's a part where you kind of want to let them see, like, hey, this is how we live.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky, because, Annie and I really love benevolence, and we're better at it in seasons than others. But, it's like, there have been a couple times where my kids have caught me doing it, and it's really cool for them to sort of be like, why'd you do that? And it's like, I don't, they needed that, and so we gave it to them. And it's like, those moments, I think, are fun, but it's hard as a parent to know how to do that well. Like, how have y'all navigated
Man, that is such a tough thing. You want the tension. You certainly don't want to be performative. You certainly, generosity at the end of the day is a form of honor. And if you're doing it for self, glory, it's actually flattery at best, which is really fake honor, which is really dishonor.
Right.
You dishonor someone if you're giving it to them for your betterment. If you're giving it to them. So first of all, like I hold that same conviction with you. However, I'll say this. I'm just old enough and been around long enough in it to know this, that the enemy, I think, has hijacked that verse and has made us misunderstand it in a way where we just feel like anyone who says anything about what they have done in generosity, they're peacocking. And here's what broke it for me. I was at a pastor's gathering with about 50 pastors and their wives, and this guy, Ashley Wooldridge, which I don't know. I don't know him. We were just at the same thing together and got to know him a little bit. But he shared from stage and was talking about pastors needing to model everything, and it's more caught than taught, blah, 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 in this session that we're all in. And he mentioned in it that there was a season in their life where they tithed 50% of his income back to the church.
Wow, jeez.
But the spirit by which he did it wasn't boasting or showing off. And honestly, what it did in me is I didn't think much of him. I thought much of God. It inspired me, to go, man, I can do more. Like I need to look deeper and harder at that. And Jennifer and I went back to our room after that session, and Jennifer said, please understand, you're only asking this, I'm just telling you this, because Jennifer said, David, the last 3 cars that we, instead of trading it in at CarMax, our last 3 cars we've given away. We've paid for several families to be adopted. There was 3 years in your life when you were church pastor in inner city in Birmingham, and you tithed 100% of your income. We took our check, we signed it, gave it back to the church. And she said, and we never share that with anybody because we don't want to point, the arrow at us. Yeah. But if it inspires people to go, man, God, it all belongs to him. We never give to God. We just give back to God, right? Yeah. If it inspires others, then it's really more about not saying it, but the posture by which you say it. And so I'm not even sharing what I'm sharing so that people will think much of me. Honestly, when I signed the check over, it was my church salary, but I was traveling and speaking, and God was blessing us with other ways. I never, when we gave the vans away, it was never new. Like we were going to trade it in. CarMax was going to give us $5,000 for it. And we thought, you know what? Here's a family who's just getting going. Why don't we bless it? And I have been on the receiving end of ridiculous, scandalous generosity.
That's the thing. We've talked about this before on the podcast with other people who are really generous. And that's the thing. It is... I can't say this enough, like people who have been affected, and you said that so beautifully, David, like by scandalous, crazy generosity, it changes you and you get the bug. You can't not go, oh, that has just deeply affected me and I want to now affect people with that. And so I think to encourage you, and I think it is a trick in Christendom, is navigating this space, is like if you don't know what's possible, then you don't know what to try for. You don't know what the mark is. And until somebody kind of says, hey, like this is going to sound a little potentially self-aggrandizing, but can I just tell you all what we did that was really cool? Well, then all of a sudden I'm like, I didn't even thought of that. But if you don't say that, I don't think about it. I keep going. And so it's a really tricky space because I think at some point somebody's got to give it up on like, hey guys, this is going to sound weird. And some of y'all may think now God's not going to bless us because we're talking about it. But this was really great. And it's something I just want to encourage you guys to think about it, whatever. And so I think it does feel like a little tricky. But I think at the same time, if you never talk about it, you don't know to try it.
I definitely recognize that it's tricky.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a hard and fast rule to give everyone. But I think ultimately people... Your deep motives will come out.
Exactly.
And especially, Dave, to your point about your kids, like, I mean, if there's anyone in this world that we can't fool, it's our kids.
Yeah, they will see it. They will flash.
Whatever we think we're hiding, we're not hiding it from our kids.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
So I think whatever your motivation is, behind it, whatever level of performative or whatever, it's all, they know who you are at your core.
Man, the greatest stories of generosity that I have in my arsenal are not me doing something generous. It's someone doing something for me.
That's right.
When I got saved, guys, I don't know if we told the story when we did the podcast the first time, but I got kicked out of the house. I'm living by with these 7 guys in a 1-bedroom apartment. I'm completely broke, right? Like can't even afford ramen noodles, broke. And this guy calls me. And I never knew this guy. He didn't go to the church I became a Christian at. I became a Christian at Shays Mountain Baptist. This guy calls me and he says, kind of a country boy. He's like, hey, David. And this is before cell phones. And he calls the phone and the apartment that I was living in, 7 of us in a 1-bedroom apartment. And he calls me and he's like, hey, David, I heard through the grapevine, through my Sunday school class, that your father has kicked you out of the house and you're a brand new Christian. And he said, and I'd like to meet you in the parking lot at Valleydale Baptist. And so this is before like Google, where you could ask Siri where it's, something.
This also sounds like maybe a fight.
That's right.
Yeah.
So man, I drive up to Valleydale Baptist. Okay. I'm literally borrowed my buddy's car. I drive up, and this guy pulls up in like a F650. It's like the biggest truck I've ever seen in my life. Country boy gets out of his truck, and he goes, "Are you David?" I said, "Yes, sir." And I thought, what have I done? What's he going to do? I had no idea. And he said, "Son, I want you to know that God's going to give you many fathers. I know your dad is mad at you for." He goes, "But I want you to know there's going to be other fathers who got your back." And he said, "And I heard you want to go to school, and you don't have money for school. So I just rounded it up." And he just hands me a check. And he goes, "I just want you to know God's got you. You go to school. You further your education." And he left. He got in his truck. He wouldn't even let me give him a side hug. You know what I'm saying? He gets in the truck. He leaves, John. I'm standing in this parking lot. And I'm just looking at this check, And I open it up, and I'm just like, what in the world? Is this the kingdom of God? I'm a new Christian, and I got to go to school because of, Mr. Russell. And I got to tell you, fast forward 20 plus years later, and my wife has me standing in line at a rental place to get a cotton candy machine for Grace's birthday party. Okay, so I'm standing in this long line at a rental place, and the guy in front of me, elderly gentleman, is kind of standing in front of me. He goes up to the front, and they go, "Mr. Russell, we're going to have the backhoe in the back if you want to pull up and get it." And as soon as I heard Mr. Russell, instantly I thought, that's the name of the guy that I met for 13 seconds at Valleydale Baptist 20-something years ago. So he turns around to go towards his truck, and I see him, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's him. I think that's him. It's either him or his dad, elderly. But yeah. So I turn around and I follow him out, and he's walking out, and he's getting in his car, and I said, "Mr. Russell." And he turned around and he said, "Yes." I said, "Sir, you don't know me." So we're having another parking lot moment. And I said, "Sir, you don't know me, but I was 18 years old 20 years ago, and I got kicked out of the house for becoming a Christian, and I didn't have a pot to piss in, sir. I didn't have any, and I'm standing in line today to pick up something for my daughter's birthday party, and I heard Mr. Russell, and I've been looking for you. I just wanted to tell you what you put in has paid dividends. I'm in ministry today, and this and this and this." And then you know what he says? He looked at me and he goes, "Well, what can I do for you now?" And I was like, freaking nothing. I want to say to you, you get in a backhoe, can I come over and help you backhoe? I don't even know how to do it, but I'll Google it. I just want to say thank you. And I said, he goes, "You got to let me do something for you." I said, "You never let me give you a hug. Can I get a hug?" He goes, "All right." So I just gave him a hug. And I'm just telling you, man, I want moments like that for my kids.
Yeah.
I want my kids to never miss the opportunity to just, it's got to make no sense. It's got to be to, you know what I'm saying? There was nothing I could ever do for Mr. Russell. He didn't give it to me because I could hook him up, or there was a little bit of a this for that, or it was not transactional.
Yeah. Yeah.
But somehow this man who didn't know me or whatever, just decided to put kingdom investment into an Iranian kid. You know what I mean? And so when I think about generosity, I don't think about the moment where we could give a $4,000 van away. If we were really generous, we would have given the new one we bought to somebody. Right. When I think about generosity, I think about Mr. Russell stepping into my life. And he didn't pay for my school. He invigorated my faith. He told me something. He said, "You know what? Your earthly father right now is trying to shut down your finances, but God is a bigger father, and he's got you." And I'll never forget that. I'll never outdo that. And so that's what I mean when I say, I just want, Brennan Manning says the gospel liberates us to live a life of scandalous generosity. And so how do we take Brennan Manning's sentence and go, I want the scandal about me to be that, And it's not about money. It's about time, and it's about investment, and it's about friendship. When you guys were telling me about how you just pulled the grill up when you had a death in the family. You know what I mean? It didn't have to be your daughter's. It was your best friend's daughter. You're just we just lingered. Time is expensive. We just hung out. We just grilled. We spent a joke. We bartered. That's generosity, right? That's just lavishing someone. And honestly, I think it's a way to outdo someone in honor. And so I just want my kids to see that. And so that was the first one. It's just give generously, which is really a mimic of the gospel, right? To whom much is given, much is required. And so, that's the first one. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on that.
I've cried too much at this point. I can't. I'm trying to recover from what can I do from you now?
It's just really inspiring. It makes me think lots of things inspire me. I mean, when I hear the word inspiration as a musician, I think of when I'm inspired, like when I go to a concert or something like that, and I get inspired to create music, which is a wonderful thing and it's a pure joy of my life. But the great thing about this, when I hear you tell these stories, I'm genuinely, it's like the chemical makeup of my body changes. I'm genuinely inspired. And the great thing about it is that this is probably the barrier to entry to generosity is almost zero. I can go out after this and be generous immediately. Whereas in these other situations where you're getting inspired, it's we typically think of it as this feat of physical or mental or whatever, this huge hurdle to get over. You got to get inspired to do it. And the generosity like this is it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And
we just don't look more like Jesus than when we are at our most generous. When we hold things loosely that aren't eternal and go, it all belongs to him anyway. Right.
Well, you know what it does? It just forces your back into a posture that it's going to be okay.
Right.
It just forces you to stand and live in this way that I really believe God's got it. It just makes you do it. It's it really is like exercise. It's you just start doing something with the belief that though it's hard, it's really good for you. And it's the more you do it, the better you get. And then the more God really does deliver. And not necessarily in ways that he's all of a sudden I got twice as much as I gave in my bank account the next day. That's not what I mean. But if nothing else, the blessing of it is just that you believe what God says is true. If that's it.
And that's what's happened, man. It's the health and wealth prosperity treats God like a vending machine. I put my tithe in and I need a lot more back out. But the Bible does say, sow a seed and you'll reap a harvest. But you don't sow $10 and get a Cadillac. You sow $1 and get 10 souls. What springs up from the ground is the field that is white for harvest. And so it is kingdom investment when we sow generosity into the life of people. Just to get practical, and I know we got to move on maybe to the next one or whatever, but a buddy of mine taught me this, guys. One of the guys that mentors me said, hey, at the end of the year, I get my family together on our end of the year family vacation or the day after Christmas or whatever, and I let my kids in on the decision making of our generosity. And so there have been years when the Nassers have had $1,000 to give. That's it. And there have been years when we've had $200 to give. But what we did is we come together with our family, and I say, hey guys, this year, before we get to the end of the year, these are, I want you, so they know now. They come and they bring ideas. And they go, hey, there's a lady down the street from us whose transmission fell out, and we want to bless them. And so I let my kids make the decision with us on how to dispense from God's blessing out at the end of the year. And they've been, Grace remembers that growing up. Even when she was a kid, we're entrusting her to have a vote on how to bless others. And it was just a practical thing a buddy of mine said, and it has really paid dividends, in a practical way to help our kids be raised in generosity.
All right, 2.
Yeah.
What is 2?
2 is apologize quickly. And honestly, guys,
I'm sorry, I felt like I rushed that. I'm so sorry.
No. It is apologize quickly. It's just
I knew you'd get that. It was going to take a second.
It's Benjamin Franklin said, he said, never spoil a good apology with an excuse. Just own a mistake and move on. And
that's a great quote. I've never heard that.
Yeah, man.
I said it in my graduation speech.
It was either Benjamin Franklin or Dave Barnes. I can't tell.
Yeah,
but
we both had our contributions to America in different ways.
My kids can tell you, like, they can tell you so often where, like, by the way, like, I modeled this on both ends. They saw how I did it, and then they saw the mistakes of, like, man, Dad, hang on. His freaking pride got in the way. That could have not been a 3-day fight that spoiled everybody's vacation, except Dad couldn't get over his ego. And Mom and Dad were sour for 5 meals during our vacation because Dad just couldn't own it.
It's always
That's
on
a great
the vacation.
qualifier. The meals are a great time quotient.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like we had 5 meals we had to sit through of them like being quiet.
Right.
Hey, would you ask your mom what she wants to do this afternoon? Would you ask your mom if she could pass down the fork?
Right. And one time, speaking of vacation, we were at Universal Studios, and it was back when, like, they would do Rock the Universe, or Disney would do their thing or whatever, and my kids just figured, like, whenever we go to Orlando, somebody shows up and VIPs us to cut all the lines, So they're kind of like, it's the 2 times that I ever got to do that. Well, then we come back to reality where it's like, yeah, Daddy's got it. We're going to be like everybody else. So the 3rd time we go to Universal, we're standing in line, but it's like long lines, right? And I remember we go to, like, the Spider-Man ride or something, and it's saying, like, we don't have fast passes, but it's saying it's an hour and a half wait, for the thing. And this guy walks up to me, and he's got one fast pass. The fast pass is where you have a ticket that you pulled an hour and a half before. It tells you to come back, and you get to go quicker. So I have one pass, and my son Rudy's looking at me like, you used to be the hookup dad. Like, we had this outstanding line. Now we're with the commoners,
Yeah.
So I look at him, and I'm trying to be like the cool dad to my son, So I said, come with me. So I have the one fast pass, and we go down that fast pass thing the whole time. We're like walking, and we're passing all the people that have been waiting forever. We go to the front, 16-year-old kid standing there, working there with his name on a tag or whatever. And I'm standing there, and I am looking I give him my one ticket, and he's like, you need 2 fast passes. And I'm looking at my cargo shorts. I'm looking for the other ticket that does not exist. Right? I'm stalling, because to me, it's like, you against me, buddy. I will hold this line up. So I'm just looking for this imaginary ticket. And the kid's 16, bless his heart. He's just like, go ahead. So we get in the ride, we ride the ride. And like an hour later, we're having lunch, and Rudy's kind of quiet. And in my mind, I'm like, I just paid $17 for a freaking turkey leg. Like, why is he quiet? And Jennifer's like, something must be up with Rudy, So Rudy gets up to go to the restroom. Jennifer walks over with him. Then Jennifer comes back and says, hey, can I talk to you? And I'm like, crap, And she said,
it's coming.
She says, hey, it really bothered Rudy that you lied. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, you lied about that ticket. You knew you didn't have a ticket. You lied about that ticket. And I'm telling you, man, I have a little man syndrome. I have a little Napoleon in me. Like, I mean, emotionally, I was like, I'm trying to teach him how to hustle.
Have you not read in the Gospels about hustle? Jesus talks so much about hustling.
But if I would just get over myself, she was right.
Right.
She was right. And it's so, like, as much as, like, maybe the first one, be generous, I'm giving an illustration of, like, we gave a van away once or whatever. This one is like, I'm telling you, if you ask Rudy, he'll tell you, like, my dad had to sit beside me and say, son, I lied. And I know I did. And I purposefully did.
Yeah.
And I knew the whole time it was a lie. And Daddy's a sinner. And I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? And of course, kids are so quick to forgive.
Yeah.
But what it did is, like, when you ask him, our kids aren't looking for perfection from us. They're just looking for us to show them that the enemy wants us divided in our corner.
Yeah.
And so often it's disarming when we just come to a moment where we've made a mistake, and then we don't spoil the good apology with an excuse. We just go, hey, that was wrong. Yeah, I own it. I'm going to move on,
And that's where Rudy said, Dad, as a penance, you need to go stand in the line with everybody else for the whole time it takes to do it. And then apologize to the kid
and then not
while
ride
you're
the
walking
ride.
in. And then,
you do
not ride the ride.
You do have to have, you got to have some of those moments, though. I mean,
oh, gosh.
If you don't have those moments, you're doing a disservice to your kid. And thankfully, this is one category where I am crushing it. Like they have lots of examples of this, and you're right, David. I mean, like you really are to those listening who maybe don't have kids yet, or your kids are too young to like you haven't been in these spaces yet. It really is amazing how quick and pure and real the forgiveness is.
100%.
It really it is something that like it's such a minefield as adults, but for kids it's just instant.
Well, I think that one of the greatest things God did in making children, and we're children, the three of us. So it's not, you don't phase out of that, right? Like it means it's in our DNA for the rest of our lives. We really want to be in good relationship with our parents. No matter how bad it is, no matter what they've done to you, your true north is always your parents. And it's this genius, it's hard as crud for, I mean, David, you can speak to that.
Language,
but like,
Dave, language.
I'm so sorry. We'll edit that. Jason, edit that out. But like it doesn't take away from how bad some parents are, but you just can't shake it. Like and so the great thing to your point, John, is when you come and go, hey, I've really messed it up and I love you. And they go, great. And they're right back with you. Like there's 100%. Not. Now, when they get older, I know that gets trickier and there's more things to navigate. But I think it doesn't change. I mean, I'm 45 and I want my mom and dad to love me and be close to them. I can't shake that.
It's not just childlike faith; it's childlike forgiveness. It's adorable. I mean, meaning like you literally adore that about your children. Dave, just to kind of admonish you in that, in all seriousness, like I follow both you guys on Instagram. Obviously, John for his latte art. People that don't.
It's gorgeous. Sure.
The other day, we watched the Shane and Shane guys came over for a steak, and we somehow ended up talking about John's latte art. And I sent you a video of us like sitting there watching it. It just owns me. It is the dry.
The overpouring ends me. It is I can't. I know it's coming, and I can't. It's when it. I can't. It is. It's the end.
If someone listening does not follow John on Instagram, you are robbing yourself of the generosity of the great. Right. It's the driest humor. It's like Dave Letterman cranked 5 notches up.
Yeah.
Or 5 notches down.
It's the Indiana.
Down. Yeah. Anyway, it's that Indiana. It's that corncob humor. Anyway, so I follow John for that. But I follow you, Dave, for the same. Like I just adore both you guys. And the other day, again, like just beginning with the posture of like I'm sorry, like asking for forgiveness. You hadn't even done anything wrong. You were like, hey guys, just want to tell you, a lot of the shows I'm doing this summer are happening, but a couple of them, the Ryman show, we just didn't sell tickets. Yeah. Like I'm not going to come up with some weird excuse, and I'm just sorry. Da 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 da. I thought that is so wise in the sense that it's disarming. Mm-hmm. Like people are going to be like, dude, I was going to go eat dinner there and go make a night of it and everything, and now that concert's not happening. But when you just begin with your hat in your hand, like you modeled that. I saw that and I thought, that's just brilliant. That he would just like not try to be like, just, hey guys, I'm so sorry. I know it's a big deal. We just didn't sell tickets this time. We'll come back later, Yeah. And I thought, it just takes, I don't think less of you for that. I think more of you for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's a superpower.
Yeah.
To actually understand that our ego gets in the way of unity. And forgiveness is unity,
Well, I mean, I've said this, I've probably said no quote more than this quote, but it is the truth. Whenever we come together sharing our strengths, it breeds competition, but whenever we come together sharing our weaknesses, it breeds community.
That's right.
And I think it's just that on, parade. Which actually leads us great to number 3, forgive graciously, which I think is, I love this, which you just kind of spoke to a second ago, is this moment of,
It's the flip of this, right? Like ask forgiveness quickly, but when someone is asking your forgiveness, man, like give it to them. Because we look like Jesus when we do. By the way, Jesus is our model in all of this. None of us, all of us, the one thing we're all consistent in, and not just these 5 and all of them, is like we're all inconsistent in them. Jesus does that. You know, John, you're a tennis guy as well. Like in the 9th grade, man, I lived in Enterprise, Alabama, and I was on the tennis team. I was the 6th seed on the tennis team. And the way it worked in that season was only the first 5 counted. First 5 matches counted. So I wasn't even, good enough to I played my match, but it didn't count.
Right.
And so we go to Dothan, Alabama, and our number one seed gets hurt. So rather than like putting everybody down, they just thought, let's just go ahead and take a loss and put our number 6 at number 1. Does that make sense?
Oh, wow.
So
yeah.
So all of a sudden, the way it plays out is we get somehow Enterprise is tied with Dothan, in matches. And we get to a place where the girls are done with their matches, all these people, and normally like no one would even care about a match, but the 3 rows in the stands are full. So I am playing this kid, right? And it matters. And then my dad, who's never been to a tennis match, all of a sudden I look and I'm like, oh, he came.
Come on.
I think he was in Dothan, 30 minutes away, running some errands, and thought, let me just sneak in here. So my dad's sitting there. I remember there's this girl on the tennis team I really liked. The police called it stalking, but I called it love. And I'm telling you, like, I just had these dreams. In my mind, I remember thinking, I'm going to beat this guy. I'm going to beat this guy, and we're going to look back, and that's when mommy fell in love with daddy.
Yeah.
And so we get in this match, man, and first set done, 6-0, bagel, like 6-0. Boom.
Yeah.
Like he beats me so fast. So we go sit down, a towel off, and we're about getting ready for the second set. And
they're like, it's weird, David. There's not a lot of sweat from your underwear, but the towel is wet with. Is that your crying?
That's right.
Okay, no, it's okay. It's okay. Your eyes are sweating. No, it's totally
exactly. And so I get up to go, and everybody's watching, and this just tells you like how immature. I was a teenager, but like this is so elementary school. I got up and I grabbed my tennis racket, and it was graphite, And so I look at the guy, and I said it really loud. The guy was playing, so that everybody in the stands could hear me. I go, hey, you ever seen the inside of one of these rackets? And the guy looked at me perplexed, like, what? And I go, you ever seen the inside of one of these rackets? And he said, no. And I took the racket, and I just hit it really hard against the ground, and he broke. As if, I guess, to project, you might be schooling me 6-0, but I'm so cool, I can break a racket. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just
I could buy another one of these within another 3 months.
Well, you have 2 rackets in case you
3 to 6 months,
right?
I'll have another one.
So I take my broken racket, and I throw my racket in my tennis bag. I grab the second racket, and I'm walking back to play the second set. And as I'm walking back to play the second set, all of a sudden I hear, David. And I turned around, and my dad has gotten out of the stands. And he's walked over inside the court. And he's standing by my tennis racket, by my tennis bag. And everybody's like looking like, what is happening? All right. So my dad goes, David. I turn around, I see him. He goes, come here. And I go, Dad, I'm playing a match. He goes, come now. So I start walking towards my dad. And as I'm getting closer and closer to my dad, I remember I was about 2.5 feet away from him. I was just kind of walking and trying to think like, what's this going to be? And he just reared back and he just slapped me. And I'm telling you, the left side of my face that he didn't slap got redder than the right. Because I'm just telling you guys, like, shame and embarrassment. So it had... Everything that I wanted was like everybody's watching this match, and now everybody's watching. I felt so little.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad goes, give me the racket. And I hand my dad the racket, and he took the broken racket and he handed it to me. And he said, play with this.
Holy cow.
And I went back to the place, and the guy's looking at me, bless his heart. He's already beat me. He's looking at me, and I remember it's deadly silent. You can just hear like a little bit of a giggle, and I'm not daring to look at the stands. I'm like, and I just remember all I kept thinking about, he's playing me now with a broken racket. It literally took him like 9 minutes to finish me off.
Yeah.
And no one said anything that day. 2 weeks later, I broke a string, or somebody broke a string, and with a racket, somebody finally cracked the joke and said, give it to Nasser, he'll play with it, or whatever, and we never talked about it. Fast forward years and years later, I'm driving to 30A to go speak at a thing, and I drive by, I always go down 231, but somehow, 331, I got routed to 231, and I'm in Dothan, which I never go by, and I drive by that very place where that had happened. Mm-hmm. And it's so weird, man. I just start crying. Mm. And I turn around, I go to the court where my dad had slapped me. And I sat there, and I just said out loud, I said, I forgive you. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get in the car. And I didn't call my dad and go, I forgive you, because he'd have been like, for what? And I would have been like, for the time you hit me, and he'd have been like, which one? All right? It wasn't about him, man. It was like,
yeah.
And I'm just telling you, I think I was stunted. I think there was a governor on the way that I love as a husband, the way I trust as a friend, the way that I think so much that I didn't even know, the curse of that moment, the shame and the embarrassment and feeling little, and so much of that came off because God was like, hey, that day that happened, I was there. Mm-hmm. You weren't the only one crying. And I'm telling you that story to say, like, forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean you condone or champion other people's behavior. It just means God saying, you go, this is what it cost, and I'm going to give the bill to Jesus, and I'm going to let him pay it.
Yeah.
And I want my kids, this is why it was in the journal the morning they're getting married. I'm like, hey guys, let it roll. Forgive each other quickly. And then if somebody says, I'm sorry, don't hold it over each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that's a hard story to tell and heavy, but I'm just telling you, man, somebody might be listening to this podcast, and you continue to hang on to what that, ex-wife did. And I'm sorry they did it. It's probably true what they did, and it's horrible what they did. Or you continue to hang on to somebody who's dead, a father who passed away, and you're hanging on, you're waiting for an I'm sorry when God's going, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm enough. And so I want my kids to know, that slap was loud, but forgiveness is louder. You know what I mean? Sin is great, grace is greater, And so, man, just learn to forgive graciously. Graciously means undeservingly.
Hey.
Yeah.
Okay. We hadn't even started.
Yeah, I just practiced my laughs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, what are some excuses you've used over the years, would you say?
Well, I'll tell you why I made the excuses is because...
No, just tell me the excuses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. My dog ate my homework, or my dog ate my car keys, or my dog ate my phone, or my car ate my dog, or my car keys ate my homework. Or they
really stay in a lane.
Yeah.
With those. Yeah. Those are good. Those are good. But Dave, do you know what has never had an excuse? That's the sound, Dave. Oh. Could it be? Shopify.
Of course, because Shopify is your no excuses business partner.
That's right, Dave. Shopify grows with your business no matter how far or big you grow. Thanks to an endless list of integrations and third-party apps, anything you think of, from on-demand printing to accounting to chatbots, earthing.
Yes, that's right.
Everything.
Yeah.
The King's English. You need to revolutionize your business.
Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries.
Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way, because businesses that grow with Shopify.
Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Dadville, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Dadville now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Dadville. Well, John, you're always faster when you race on your feet, not your hands. That's why she beat you.
I know, but it's just, she was so elderly.
I know. I lost so much money on that. John, warm weather brings many outdoor activities.
That's true.
Weekend hikes, pool parties, staring at your neighbor's lawns, family barbecues. With all that time spent in the sun, I wonder what that is doing to our hair, John. Mm-hmm. Those rays can seriously affect your scalp and hair, making now the perfect time to start taking Nutrafol.
I knew you were going to say Nutrafol.
Yeah.
You know what, Dave? Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, with over 1 million people seeing thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding.
Physician formulated with drug-free ingredients, Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are clinically tested to multi-target key root causes of thinning.
And with Nutrafol, building a hair growth routine is simple. Purchase online, no prescription or doctor's visit required, free shipping and automated deliveries ensure you'll never miss a day. See results in 3 to 6 months.
Get results you can run your fingers through. I love that. That's good. That's good. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo word Dadville.
Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code Dadville.
That's Nutrafol.com, promo code Dadville.
Yeah. Well, you know, it makes me think, like, one thing that I also want my kids to learn, that I feel like I have been learning in my recent adult years.
Yeah.
Is you gotta really, you know, I think there's a tendency, maybe especially in Christian circles, to snap to forgiveness, which is not on its face a bad thing, but I think we can sidestep a lot of processing.
Yeah.
I think we can sidestep a lot of feelings and emotions and like that day, that experience. I mean, man, putting myself in your shoes in that moment, that's a very scarring experience. That's an experience where you're like, oh, okay, this is possible in life. To feel like this is possible. That's and I think you have to give yourself the time and the grace to feel all of it.
Yeah.
To really get to true forgiveness of all parties involved.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think that's.
I agree.
Something that should be seen as like a weakness that like you can't forgive yet, or you can't get to a point where I think just a lot of times we fake forgiveness, or we say the words, but you really got to let yourself really feel all of it, you know. And it wasn't, like you said, until years later that maybe you're really starting to square up to some of the feelings.
Yeah. And honestly, there's still moments when I haven't forgiven him for the same thing that I already forgave him for. Because what I'm learning in my own, and maybe you guys have an easier time with it than me. And maybe it's because you just are more mature in your faith. I'm not saying that to try to sound humble or whatever. It's just like, I've learned that forgiveness for me is chiropractic. And what I mean is, like, I'll get aligned by the Holy Spirit, but then the muscle pulls the bone out of joint again. Like, something will happen again, and I have to constantly go to the foot of the cross and forgive again, and forgive again, and forgive again, and forgive again. And it doesn't mean, like, if someone's listening to this and you've been harmed by somebody, just know sometimes the godliest thing you can do to honor somebody is to call the cops on them and stop them from hurting themselves and others.
Yeah.
This does not mean reconciliation. This does not mean you get back into the abusive situation. It just means, like John, you said, that you in due time have the courage to come and allow the gospel to do its work, not just the saving work, but a sustaining work in your life, by saying the gospel gives me the ability not just to be forgiven ridiculously, but to forgive my dad. Because again, I think it stunted the way that I trusted people.
Yeah.
It stunted the way, and I don't even know it. Like, I had to go to counseling and to have somebody say that. You know, I went to see Chip Dodd, and Chip Dodd was like, I want you to go and right now visit that ninth grade boy. Mm-hmm. And I want you to tell him, you're going to be all right. And I want you to tell him, you're going to tell this story one day and help people. Because what the enemy meant for evil, God's going to use for good.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's worth $340 an hour. Thank you, Chip. And you know this stuff, right? You know it, but then you got to actually like take your own medicine, you know, as a preacher sometimes. And I'm just telling you guys, like, I just know that if their marriage, if my daughter and my son-in-law's marriage is going to be anything like my marriage, a lot of forgiveness on both sides is going to have to take place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And if that's the case, I just want to front load it with some wisdom and say, hey, you saw like daddy, it took years for daddy to finally own up to forgiving his dad for what happened on that tennis court. And even then, he still stumbles into it, you know?
Yeah.
Have you guys ever, I'd love to hear some more of your thoughts, because I know.
Well, you know the quote that I thought of that I think about, and I have no idea who said this, but it's that idea that like, well, just unforgiveness is like drinking poison and waiting on the other person to die. And it's just so true. It's like the more you hold that stuff in your body, and it's different, I think, like you're saying, David, when something happens to you to age or in a way that you sort of just move on.
Yeah.
And you're just sort of like, whatever. But I think those moments where we really like harbor, where we're like purposefully withholding forgiveness or as a power play, or like, God, dude, I struggle with this in my marriage so much of like, you know, I'm just going to take that and okay, the game is afoot, dude.
That's right.
The game is afoot. And it's like, what are you doing?
That's right.
What are you doing? And I think a lot of times too, that stuff is, they don't even know they've done it. And so it's just even more dumb because you're kind of like, they're going to come around. Oh, she's going to, you know, or he or whatever, whoever the offender is. And you realize like a lot of time they're like, dude, I forgot I even said that. And you're like, what? You know,
or I didn't even do that. Have you ever heard of the words vain imagination?
No.
You do it. I do it. We all do it. Yeah. So, but here's the label on it. Vain imagination is like, Jennifer and she has already had the talk with me of like, hey, you don't need any more shoes. So like whatever's broken in you when you as a kid, you left Iran and lost everything. And now every time you see something on Poshmark, you get it. Like, you don't need any more shoes. Okay, great. Thank you. Hold me accountable to that. Great. And then I see something that's like a really good deal to me. So I justify it and I buy it. So the whole day I'm thinking, when this thing arrives today, I just got the UPS notice it's arriving today. In my mind, I'm like, Jennifer's going to check the mail. She's going to see it. She's going to be mad at me. So on the drive home from the airport, I'm already having a fight with her.
Yeah.
So then I just walk in the house and I'm already emotionally had the fight. I'm already emotionally like I've been ripped into, but she hadn't even done it. So vain imagination is we've already had a fight from the drive from the BNA airport to my home in Franklin.
Yeah.
And then I walk in and I'm already an emotional 5. Then she nudges a 2. She just or a 3. Hey, something came in the mail today. I treat it like an 8 because I'm already at a 5, and now she gave me a. So I'm like, bam, and she's like, whoa. I just wanted to tell you. Yeah. Sounds to me like you got your birthday gift. I'm good. Like, but vain imagination is like, we'll have a fight that didn't even happen.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, half the fights that Amy and I have been in, she wasn't there for. It was all in my head.
Right. That's really well said, yeah.
And so if you're going to instill your imagination and have a vivid imagination of a fight, then have a vivid imagination of a makeup.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you get home, go ahead and in your imagination, imagine that she just said, I love you and you've never looked more handsome. You know, like... But it never left on its own veers to the right things of things. Left on its own, that imagination always just, it's a bonfire of vanities, man. Like it's the wrong.
Yeah. Why is that?
Yeah.
Because we need grace, man. We need the gospel.
Yeah, touche.
It's interesting how in any given situation, it's like no situation is happening in a vacuum. Like
right.
The way that I react to whatever, like this conversation right now, David, everything that you've brought today, I'm hearing it through the lens of the sum of my recent experiences.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm bringing whatever baggage I have today, or
right.
you know, I'm in a great mood today and I'm really feeling open or whatever. Like, it's always the sum of whatever recent experiences, you know, we're bringing to whatever situation.
100%. 100%.
It's just complicated.
100%, man.
Which is why all that stuff needs to be redeemed anyway, right? Okay, so this one I'm really curious about. Number 4, you put learn ferociously. Yeah. Which, tell me about that.
I think...
Aren't you old enough to know everything, Dave?
You know, Steve Brown has the best title for a book ever. Author Steve Brown. The title of the book is Things I've Learned Since I Knew It All.
Oh, what
such a good title, man.
That's so good.
I wish it was still up for grabs. And here's what I've learned. The people that I see, the godliest people I see, seem to fight cynicism with curiosity. They're insatiably hungry for more and more. They're learners. They're always students. As a matter of fact, I think that's some of the secret sauce. I was thinking about these 5, and I thought of 4 immediately about you two. One of the reasons I love the Dadville podcast is you guys, it seems like you're genuinely curious about the questions you're asking. You care about, like, tell me more and what's going on and why this, and which is why I told you, like, hey, the first time we did the podcast, hey, if I start telling you my story, it's going to take the whole hour. Not because I just knew you guys are going to go, now stop. How did you feel at that moment? And what did your mother say? Oh, no, go back. And I think you guys are, what I would say, you guys are porous. You're porous. You let it in. And so, which means you're probably healthy, you know, in that.
It also, well, one of the great things about being idiots is that you can only go toward curiosity because you don't know.
That's exactly right.
And so I think where some would be like, they're curious, I'd be like, no, this is because I don't know anything and I need to make it through the day.
But you said it a minute ago, Dave. You said, like, when you get a bunch of guys together and they all talk, it's all about, like, all their accomplishments. It really slows down, like, the getting to know. The second it's about people sharing their, what did you say? The vulnerabilities. It's a
whenever we come together sharing our strengths, it breeds competition.
Yeah.
And then
and I think that's learning for us. Like, when you're vulnerable, you're asking, like, hey, anybody else struggle with this? Anybody else wondering about anybody else not know the answer to this? And so what I've learned is, like, it's so important that when we walk, like, my daughter Grace was writing her a paper for law school applications. You know, you got to do, like, an essay for law school applications. And in it, she quoted Brad Lomenick. And she said, she was reading it to me. She's about to head to Pepperdine Law. But in her little dissertation for that, she said, it said, I always come to the table, and she said something about, and I want to be, when I'm in a conversation, I want to be interested and not interesting. I said,
and that's where our paths diverge right there. That's the moment where she and I are different. Continue.
And I said, so where did you get that? And she said, Brad Lomenick at 101 Student Leadership University taught me that when you come into a conversation, be interested instead of interesting. And how often have we gone to lunch with somebody and it's little me monsters, and it's like,
okay, I feel like I've told this story before. Yeah. I know I've told this story before, but it is, you just literally, I feel like you set this up for me to say this. When Annie and I were dating. So one of my, let's call it a gift set, is that, you know, I can entertain. That's like a gift set of mine, is that I can spin a story, I can whatever, right? I made a living out of it. But we're dating. We're not even married at this point. And we go to this lunch. It's a couple. It's 2 other couples. And I don't know them well, and they're not, they're both really chill. So that means, like, there's a lot of space in this conversation, like a lot. And I would love to take that space. And so as the conversation goes, I just kick into Dave entertainer mode. Right. And for about an hour, I just hold court. And I mean, no competition. They're laughing. They're eating out of my hands. I could have sold merch at the end of this. That's how well this lunch went. And so we get in the car. I float back to the car because I'm like, that is how you do that. That's exactly how you do that. That was a tutorial on how to entertain.
You're going to the car going, you're welcome.
Yes, John. That's exactly. We get in the car. I'll never forget this. We get in the car. I mean, I'm buzzing. And Annie, we shut the doors. And before she starts the car, she kind of looks over and she goes, "What was that?" And I was like, "My dear, that's how you
Some
do
say
that." Is what that was. That was
Some say genius.
There's Michael Jordan with his flu game. There's, we can start. That was that for me. And she literally says, "I don't know who that was, but I am not interested in him at that guy. Wow. Like I don't like that guy." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Dave, can you tell me any of their names?"
Yeah.
And I was like, now, okay, so it's white people, so like probably Jeff or
Brody.
Brody. The girls. But I mean, it was a seismic moment in my life.
Yeah.
Like it was an Ebenezer moment. And she said, "Listen, I get that you're funny, and that's great. You didn't contribute anything in that moment.
Yeah.
You took." And it was like she grew a beard and suddenly looked Middle Eastern for about a minute, because it was like I just felt like the Lord was like, "Hey, this is a great part of who you are, but that's not contribution. You're just taking." And I wasn't curious. I wasn't trying to learn. I was just posturing. And and Annie laughs now because this is 20 years later. We will be at a dinner, and we'll get in the car, and I'll go, "Hey, like." How did I do?
Yeah.
And she's like, "Why do you keep asking me this? You were great. You asked great." Because I'm just like, I know me. And if I'm not careful, I'm not going to try to learn.
Right.
I'm going to try to take. And it's, thank God my posture's gotten better for that. But it's crazy you say that, Dave, because that was one of the moments in my life that I will never, I think about it all the time. Yeah. I will, to this day, if I go to lunch with a few people and I feel the engine starting, I'm like, whoa.
That's right.
Whoa. Ask a question. And that's how I remedy it. I'll go ask a question. So tell me how y'all met. Like, what's going on there?
Totally, man.
Because the whole time I feel like I'm getting pitched like like it's improv, and somebody's like, "Huh," and I'm like, "Don't swing at that.
Totally,
don't swing at that."
I feel like just to speak very generally overgeneralize, in my opinion, what I observe on planet Earth, women do this so much better than men.
Yeah,
I don't know why that is.
Yeah,
but I feel like what Amy has taught me. I would be just in many, many ways, of course, but in this regard, I would be completely different if it weren't for Amy.
Yeah.
I feel like she showed me this.
Yeah.
She was like, "Here's how you interact with another human being."
Yeah.
And you ask them questions about themselves, and then you remember what they said.
Let's just start with one. Let's notice other people.
Let me just say, man, like, I was telling a friend of mine this morning, I'm out of town, that's why we're, not together in person. Yeah. And I was telling my buddy, I was like, "Hey, I got to do this podcast with," and he said, "What is it?" And I said, "Dadville," and I said, they are like Smartless 10X. And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, I listened to the Smartless podcast because they're so good with curiosity, genuinely wanting more from the guest and pulling from the guest and making the guest feel welcome of like, I'm the guest and they want me to pickleball ideas back and forth. And I said, no one's better than John and Dave, because there's a genuine curiosity. And I think so if Annie is listening to this one, her investment in you is she's helped you.
Any more of me.
The awareness of that and the hunger for curiosity. For me, I do the same, Dave, and I know it's birthed out of my insecurity.
Yeah.
I know that I just can't let a negative space. I just want to fill in the blanks.
Yeah,
I feel uncomfortable in the silence, and so it's in my insecurity. And so Jennifer's had to say to me before, like, I don't think you were perceived like you thought you were perceived.
Yeah.
That's the name of my autobiography.
Yeah. I don't think. I think you thought you crushed lunch. I just want you to know. I think they're in their car going, "Is he on cocaine?
Is he okay?"
Yeah.
It was.
Did he do a bump in the bathroom halfway through the meal?
And can I tell you when it is? It's when I'm unhealthy. Typically, it's when I'm in margin or something else has happened and I feel insecure. And so I found an audience to do therapy out loud or to get. And so when I'm aware of that and I go, okay, it takes a village. I need to be aware. But the short of it is like telling Rudy and Ben, I'm telling Grace and Ben, like, man, have an appetite to be learners, to lean in, to ask questions. It's because I just feel like they're both leaders, And everywhere I look, I see like people always going to leadership conferences. I never see anybody going to a fellowship conference. And the best leaders I know are actually followers.
Yeah.
Like I think the reason you guys lead so well in this podcast and has found so much people have resonated with it is because you are learners.
Yeah.
That's by the way, Joe Rogan is a learner. So he's like, tell me more. And then he slows people down, like pulls out the varnish of that idea. And
well, you know what it is, honestly, and I think, we've still got 5 here that's coming up, but the thing that I think is that unites these 5 thoughts to me is humility. Yeah. And I think, I was texting with a buddy of mine this morning. He was just asking how I was, so I was kind of checking in. But I think this has been one of the more humbling seasons of my life, just sort of with a lot of things. But there's an unbelievable grace in that from the Lord, because I think like if I'm not careful, I don't really enjoy pain. It's a weird part of my makeup, but my wife is like, what's hard and challenging? Let's frickin' storm the castle. And I'm like, what's really nice is out here in the plains, the abundant vineyards. Can we just sort of camp out here? But it's something she's taught me a lot about. But I think God is also funny because what I think is true is that he disciplines those he loves. And I think with me, it's been this disciplining season of like rooting out a bunch of things. And in that, it's really hard, it's really uncomfortable, and it's really humbling. But I think also at the same time, it's keeping me at a place where I have to learn, where I have to, I don't know more than people.
That's right.
I don't know more about life. I'm not succeeding at some great level that I can sit atop my perch and kind of view the world from 30,000 feet to kind of laugh in my ivory tower. Yeah. Instead, it's like, look, man, I mean, God is he's keeping me right here at ground level, if not a little lower, which is a kindness. It's hard, but I think that one of the things I love about this season is that it does generate curiosity. Yeah. It doesn't give me this posture of like, let me sit down, young bucks. Let me tell you the things I know.
Yeah.
But don't you think that you need the humility? You need like some balance of humility and security. Because if it's all humility,
for sure. Right. Well, yeah.
I find that then what I'm hearing, what I'm getting from other people is knocking me around too much. It's like my identity can be at stake.
Yeah.
And then I can't hear what they're saying out of just a generous curiosity. It's like, well, how does that affect me if that's how you feel? And I'm sort of like just, free floating in the wind here. Like, well, how do I feel about that? Like if you have security and the humility as well, then you're just able to.
That's right.
Well, but the thing is, that's the arithmetic of the gospel, is that God is like, you can't find identity but in me, and to find identity in me, you have to be humbled to a place where you're no longer there. It's just me.
100%.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole point. And I think that's why it's so frustrating in my sin, in myself, because I'm like, no, I want to be good enough. Like I want to be the guy that gets to win the stuff and does the things and succeeds. And God is like, my man, in this kingdom, there's only room for one of us, 100%. And it hurts otherwise, And 100%. So I think that's the beauty of this humbling, is you realize, like, oh yeah, and to your point, John, it's so beautifully said. But I can only be that secure when it's not me that's secure.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What clogs up that porous spirit of tell me more and curiosity and that childish goodness of like wondering, and it's that Peter Pan thing of like learning to be a kid again and learning to want to know more and see everybody as interesting instead of like, it is a lack of humility, because and when you exercise arrogance, then you constantly want others to feel your bigness.
Right.
And God then brings you to your knees, which is why like people drive 6 hours and go to the beach. And stand at the ocean. You don't stand at the ocean and think, when I heard this ocean roar, I thought about my closing illustration last Sunday.
I thought how amazing I am.
That was when I thought about the hit I wrote and the thundering crash of that hit from Morgan Wall. Like it's like you stand at the ocean and you feel small.
Yeah.
And God reminds you, like, man, you don't know jack.
Yeah.
You don't even know 1% about anything. The wisest people I know the wisest people I know are constantly, like, you have to fight at lunch with them when you go to eat lunch with them, because all they want to know is, how you doing? What's going on? Tell me more. Tell me more. Yeah. They don't want to tell you about all their accomplishments. They want to hear more about you. And I just want to get there. So we both, I think it is harder for people who sometimes feel like when they do go to places, they get wound up like a toy and like let loose. I feel that way sometimes. Like, fill the room, David. And honestly, sometimes Jennifer's like, you still lack the awareness. And I want you to continue to work on that in your spirit. And I love you. Like, I actually want you to be funny. I just don't want you to, like, lose that sense of wanting more.
Well, to button this thought up and as we move to 5, I think the thing that is what I have learned in God's kindness is that my humor and conversational acumen, if you will, is also a gift if used right. And Annie has helped me also understand that. Like, that we'll leave times and it'll feel right. And we'll get in the car and she's like, gosh, you were funny. And I'm like, I almost want to go, sorry. But she's helped me understand, like, Dave, that's when it's done in a benevolent way, when humor and your ability to host well is done in that it brings people together and it's benevolent. She's like, it's a superpower of yours. Like, it's incredible because you can make people feel at ease. You make people laugh. You make people feel seen. And like, and she's like, so this is not the baby in the bathwater. This is just like, it's everybody's whatever everybody's like gift is. This is always how it works with whatever your gift is. It's like, you use for good, it's incredible, but it also has this wicked shadow side that when used for bad becomes very selfish and about control. And so it's not to say I don't want to end that thought with like, I've just learned to be quiet at every meal. In fact, Annie will sometimes be like, hey, come on, like, do it. Like, come on, rev it up. And I'm like, okay, it's also like, oh, everybody feels normal again. It got weird and quiet, or like nobody knew what to say. And I think what's funny to say that is that the reason I brought that up is I feel like it goes into your 5th point so well, which you said, don't take yourself so seriously, which I think is a really interesting point to end these. You know what I mean? Because you would think, each of them have some heft here. They've got some weight. You kind of like give is big thing. Apologize, that's heavy. Like forgiveness is heavy. Learning and pursuit and humility is heavy. And it's funny to end this with this thought, like, that said, semicolon, don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I think the virtue behind don't take yourself so seriously is humility. It's the antidote against hubris. And it's just like, hey, listen, you're going to do well in your marriage when you learn not to take yourself so serious. Like, 1 out of 1 people are going to jack up this thing, and you're 2 sinners brought together by the grace of God, and you're going to let each other in on everything that's broken about each other and everything that's beautiful about each other. And just learn to not take, as a matter of fact, I think the reason a lot of lost people don't take the gospel seriously is because they see God's people take themselves too seriously.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Because it's a posture of superiority.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, and the way that it iterates in a marriage, it's really fascinating. I've never actually thought about this, but some of those dangerous couples I know are the ones that feel so this is what I was going to say. Success brings weight. It does a lot of things, but what it does is it brings this weight to each of us. We were talking to Brad Montague, who did Kid President, about this, but like, success is this. I want to write a book on success, and that's a whole, not because I have it, because I want to hear what people have to say about it. But one of the things that I think is really fascinating, that's the great, it's the great bait and switch of success is it suddenly brings a self-awareness that brings all this weight, right? So it's like when you see something working, and that Brad talked about that when Kid President took off, is he was like, all of a sudden you're just hyper aware, and it's like, oh gosh, what do we do next, and what are people expecting? But I think in marriage, it's crazy because when you start seeing that you're doing it well, and like we're really getting along, you can start to bring this. We kind of got some thoughts for people if you want to hear them, and it is the beginning of the end. It's like I've been around a couple of times where you get to these couples, and these couples have words they want to share. Right. Let me tell you, and I'm like, man, this is we got to be careful in this space, because you can do it in a way that's really beautiful. Yeah. And even our point about generosity, you want to hear couples that have done it well. Tell us how you've done it, but it does have to have this humility. And I think I've been around a couple of those conferences, or you get with the kind of pro couples where they're like, we've navigated, and I'm like, oh brother, this just it is tricky.
Like in those spaces, I'm like, unless you're going to tell me about some failures, and then we can all learn from that.
That's right.
Otherwise, I don't know.
That's right.
Yeah.
You guys, and again, I've said this multiple times in the hour we've spent together, but you legit are one of my favorite podcasts. But you're not my favorite, and I'm going to tell you.
That's fine. That's fair.
We're going to edit
this. My favorite podcast, okay?
Let's edit right there. Jason, put in would you say Dadville real quick, David? Okay,
my favorite podcast is How I Built This.
Yes.
And I'm just hooked on that podcast. And the points, one of the reasons I love it is because incredibly successful people that end up on that show, don't take themselves seriously. They talk about their failures. They go, I ran an ice cream shop. I went to Grasse, France, fell in love with perfumes, wanted to become a perfumer, came back, started putting like lavender in ice cream, but I had pink hair. Nobody wanted to buy from me. I had erratic hours. I was inconsistent. They didn't take they just kind of bear on their sleeve all their failures, and then they go, finally I got my stuff together, but nobody wanted to rent me a space because I was inconsistent. And when I'm hearing that, and that's the story behind Jenny's ice cream, it makes me want to go buy ice cream because I go, she's teaching someone by not taking themselves so seriously. My favorite thing in that is like hearing a story of someone who did not waste the failure. Did not. Nobody has time. Nobody wants to hang out with somebody who takes themselves so seriously that they can't. And Dave, one of the things I love about you is like I have only sent a few texts to you guys, but we immediately always go to like humor with our texts. And you can take it. Like I'll take a little jab at you, which is a fast forward button. It's a term of endearment if we're just getting to know each other, and you go ahead and jab me about my height, and I go ahead and jab you about your frosted tips, and then you go ahead and jab me about something. And to me, Jennifer's like, that's kind of rude. I'm like, no, it's how we push the fast forward button on the friendship. I'm like, are we letting each other in?
I agree.
But you can't do that with someone who takes themselves, who can dish it out but can't take it.
Yeah.
And they ought to be able to take themselves not so seriously, and that they go, this is actually goofy and true about me, Mm-hmm. And so and so like those are the five, and I know there's probably so many bigger things you could say to somebody than those five, but they're the five that came to mind, when I was sitting there.
Well, it's funny, again, they're all linked with humility.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are. Like, as I was looking at them, I thought that is the common bond, is just this sense of like, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And to John's point, again, like it doesn't threaten me because I'm humble enough to know that there's no me to be threatened.
Yeah.
Like I am God's child.
Yeah.
So therefore I'm good.
Yeah.
Anything else is just, it doesn't matter.
Have you heard the Howard Schultz, Starbucks Howard Schultz story told by him?
I don't know that I have.
He talks about how he almost derailed all of Starbucks, and he blames the entire thing on hubris. He's like, you want to know why Starbucks almost fell off the grid? I was culpable. I took myself too seriously as a leader, got too offended when people try to tell me the truth in the room. I was like, how dare you? And then he was like, and I had to get over myself and be teachable,
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, to his own betterment.
Yeah.
When I hear that, I just go, here's a guy so much more successful than I'll ever be in my life, and he's giving me a free lesson. Saying, like an inflated self-importance is always going to stunt your effectiveness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Golly.
And so, yeah, that's hard. And all of these, just a closing thought here on these five. They are more prescribed than described at times in David Nasser's life. But my daughter would say to you, like, Dad, thanks for these 5. There were times when you're prescribing, which there's not a description of who you are. It's a prescription of where you want to be.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. That's a great word.
And so one out of one of us are going to fail at all 5. But Jesus is our great model.
Yeah. Well, David, thank you. I mean, it's funny because we don't have to ask the final question because you just basically nailed the whole. You just stuck the whole landing on that.
This was long overdue, man.
I love you.
Yeah,
thank you for coming back.
So last thing I will say, can you just quickly catch us up on what you're doing now, so people kind of know? I know that you helped Chris get 4 others up and running, and what does it look like now?
First of all, when I talk about generosity and so many of these 5s, I think about Chris and Lauren Tomlin exuding that. And their friendship has been so much of these 5 things towards me and Jennifer and our family. But 2.5 years ago, we left Liberty and came here to be a part of the what was called at that time Angel Armies. God had given Chris and Lauren a dream to help vulnerable kids. Yeah. And they said, hey, come be a part of this with us. And God's really blessed it, man. Like, you guys have been a part of it. Like, you guys have helped champion this cause. Dave, we cashed your check of generosity to help these kids, when and you've been a part of that. And I'm just saying that to say thank you. But it quickly grew beyond my effectiveness as a leader. Meaning, I know that I am very good at a very few things, gifted by God. And it sharply drops off. And it just grew so fast that I was feeling like this ministry is blessed.
I like that it sharply drops off.
Yeah, but I just knew.
You're like, it's not a gradual.
It's a chassis. I just felt like 4 others needed an administrative beast to take it to the next place more than I could. And my gifting is, I'm obviously again, it's not false humility. I know I'm really gifted by God. I am blessed, and others around me are blessed when I'm doing very few things. And so I was reading this book, Strength to Strength, and God used that to kind of loosen my roots and say, you're in the 2nd chapter of your life, and you need to be focused. You have the luxury and the gifting of focusing on what you're good at, what I've kind of fearfully and weirdly made you. And you kind of suck at a lot of other things, and it's frustrating you and frustrating others around you. And the short of it was, I just missed preaching more than anything, because that's what I feel like I'm best gifted at by God. Hospitality, preaching, curating, creativity, that's kind of my thing. Admin is not my thing, So I felt like 4 others needed a better leader at that, and we had one in the cupboard. The lady that we had hired to run that was so much better than me in that. And I just missed preaching. So I went to Chris and said, hey, buddy, I love you. Thank you for this opportunity. It's been good. We took a risk to work together as friends, and God's paid off. I mean, God's paid it off. Like, it's been amazing. But I miss preaching. I want to go do what I'm really crafted to do. And they were so gracious. And I think they also knew, we'd outgrown me on the admin side of day-to-day grind of this organization that's just exponentially grown fast. And so I'm still a part of it and big champion of it, but I felt like I want to go and write and preach and help the local church and tell stories. And there's talks about maybe my life story be made a movie, so that's going to take some bandwidth or whatever. And so all that to say, Chris and Lauren were so gracious to go, absolutely, thank you for the time that, you've been able to be a part of this. And I think also and so I left in January, and it's been amazing. So I've been traveling and speaking and preaching and beginning to write. As a matter of fact, even these 5 things I just shared with you, I shared it the other day at a conference, and a guy came up to me afterwards and he was like, bro, that's a book. You should put, and I'm like, really? And so I feel like God's put some arrows in the quiver. And it's so I'm just walking in what's next.
Well, good for you obviously that requires humility. Yeah. You're on this rocket ship and you're kind of at the helm. You're the guy running things. It takes a lot of humility to step down and recognize your own limitations at that time, where you could have just stayed, as the face of it, just for the, notoriety and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
good for you for doing that.
Thanks, man. Like, there are things, I'd be interested to know, like, the last thought here, like, there are things that I do with, I'm right-handed. John, are you right-handed?
Yeah.
Cool. So there are things that I do that I would consider like my right hand. There are things I do that are my left hand. So like if it comes down to creativity, right hand. Hospitality, right hand. Storytelling, right hand. Salesman, right hand. Comes to admin, left hand. So if you tell me to write something with my left hand, it'll take me twice as long, cramp up my hands, and it'll still look sloppy. And so what are the things that you can do, John, that God made you to do naturally? It's your right hand. And then what are the things that you're not as gifted at? And I still got to do them. But how do you get to a place in your life where God can maybe bless you and grace you with the idea of like, go do the things that you're uniquely made to do, you know, at the level. And it's humbling to know that like, I'm just not good at this. And I'm trying. It's taking me 3 times as long. And by the way, everybody around me is frustrated. Right. But I'm just not good at it, you know, and I'm a little edgier at the end of the day and all that. Why? Because my hands cramping emotionally from all this, you know?
Right. Yeah.
David, you're a legend, dude. Thank you for your time. Thanks again for this wisdom. I'm glad that you let us in on this advice, because I think it's unbelievably timely, and you're so kind to do it. And, you know, pray that God keeps blessing all these things you do.
Thanks, man. I love you both.
Dadville.